I'm past worrying I gotta be the top burner every fucking second.
So there you go, then.
Don't give me that smart alecky shit. Don't forget, I go back in his family to Johnny. Before you even. It's your fault anyway. All this shit started with that Russian prick when I had to go pick up your $5,000.
You know, things might be a little different, Paulie. You could accept some responsibility for a change.
You're a wormy cocksucker, you know that?
No! I'm just telling you how you're being fucking perceived.
Just worry about how you're fucking perceived. Nobody knows what the future holds, my friend.
That's right, my friends. Welcome to Cut to Black, a Sopranos sit-down. My name is Jim Scampoli, and I've seen every episode of The Sopranos.
Hi, my name is Jacob Burrows, and I've seen 51 episodes of The Sopranos. We're really coming to the end now of Season 4, that is, with lots of episodes to go. But this one, Eloise, episode 12 of Season 4. Who put this thing together, Jim?
This one was written by Terrence Winter, who is, like we said, on The Sopranos Mount Rushmore. He's a mainstay. It was directed by James Heyman. This is the only episode of The Sopranos that he directs. He is married to Annie Potts, who played Janine on Ghostbusters. So there's a little interesting factoid for you. And he was the cinematographer on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie.
Ooh, great accomplishments, both. So I wouldn't say that this one stuck out stylistically as a very different one, even though they had one of those one-off directors. I'd say sometimes when they do, there have been a couple episodes where I'm like, okay, that was an interesting / dumb choice or interesting / great choice, but like something that sticks out. Wouldn't really say anything stuck out about this particular director in a good way.
Yeah, no, I agree. By the way, this episode did air on December 1st, 2002, so it's been that long. But yeah, it just kind of seemed I guess journeyman. You could put anyone in the director's chair on this one. It's a good thing. It's not really necessarily a bad thing because it didn't go against type for The Sopranos. It felt right at home with the rest of the episodes.
Yes. Well, the one thing that feels off is it starts in this courtroom and Junior is like not having a weird side plot where he's trying to antagonize the artist or like chatting up some reporter. He's just actually being convicted. Not really convicted. They're doing their closing statements as far as I can tell. But the important thing, of course, is that they're scoping out which of these jurors would be best to threaten. Maybe all of them. Maybe that guy. We'll start with that guy.
And then also, I thought, unless I'm mistaken, when he looks back into like the audience or the crowd or whatever, do we see the nurse sitting there?
Yes.
Okay.
We do.
Yeah. Because I wasn't quite 100% or not, but I did make a note on that. So yeah, we see the nurse in the crowd, and then Bobby scoping out the jury. Who's the weak link? Who can we lean on, if you will, and try to get Junior, get him off this dumb trial. He's an innocent man, I tell you.
Yes, they do say like they've documented clandestine meetings at his doctor's office, and that's when we see the nurse sort of exchanging a look even with Junior. So, and he's not like "fuck you," he's like you sweetheart," because it doesn't really matter at this point. They just need to get to one of these jurors, and they pick one out.
And then we have Carmilla and AJ's going over what his report of Herman Melville's Billy Budd, which becomes an important plot point later on, as well as this discussion of this book, this novella, which I will say is the final novel by Herman Melville, first published posthumously in London in 1924. This is all off the top of my head.
Of course. Similarly, off the top of my head, I will let you know that it was posthumously published. Maybe you already said that, but they found it in his notes and just published it after, and they had to rewrite it because his notes were all fucked all over the place, so they published another version then, and it's become a classic, and we all know this. Jim, I've never heard of this novella. Needed to look into it a little bit there. But even with all of that, like not having heard of it, this line here, I don't know if it's me or society or whatever, or just great writing in The Sopranos, but I was like, it sounds like a pretty gay book. Not negatively, but like he's talking about how, he's always calling him handsome and clapping him on the shoulder or something. I'm like, it sounds like one of these repressed gay men maybe. So that was my analysis from one sentence. So, yeah.
So, yeah, it sets things up. And then Furio arrives, speaking of gay men, I'm on Team
Jeez.
Tony all the way.
Wow. Okay. So this
No.
is not great. You're less PC than Carmilla.
Yeah, I'm being facetious. But yeah, Furio arrives and what? They're talking about the remodeling, and her dad's like a contractor, and they're trying to get ready for his mom to come out and live in his garage, which I don't think you're supposed to be doing. And then yes, she's got the homemade scones, and AJ brings up what, fat and carbs for breakfast. And there was a line in the previous episode as well where he was concerned about weight. So I don't know, like, is this just the smallest subplot ever? Because I think Tony made some comment like, "Oh, that's all you're concerned about," like in the last episode. So AJ going through an eating disorder, I imagine.
I don't think it's that bad. I think it's just, I mean, he's always is he still on the football team, or was that like, did that end when he passed out, or like, because is that still going on? What do you think? I mean, he did get kicked out of school since, so he's presumably not on the same team.
Yeah, I guess we can assume he's still playing football.
I would honestly assume not, given that, he didn't like it that much. He left the school. Now he's at another school. He's actually doing his papers. He's got a girlfriend. I would just think he's grown up a bit and started actually realizing he should care about how he looks more than how he feels, probably. So that's. But yeah, you're right. It's a very small subplot. Itching for the payoff.
Yeah, and then even Furio doesn't have a homemade scone either, but he does say it smells like heaven in here. Mm-hmm. Tony comes down and eats a scone, and Carmella gives him like the biggest stink I've ever seen. Like, I love that she's so annoyed that he's enjoying one of her homemade scones, because it really is to this point of like, you disgusting person, like, why are you in my life? But then Tony's doing kind of the right stuff here though, because he's, what do women want? They want like spontaneity, show that you've been thinking about them. Although I guess, to be fair, you can typically gather that Tony had to lean on someone or someone owed him, so he fell into this Ocean Club Paradise Island vacation that he springs on her here. But she's not really impressed with that either.
True. Yeah, of course. And I mean, she made the scones for Furio because, like we mentioned, AJ's like, what? So she says, like, my son loves them, and he's like, what? Fat and carbs? So she made them for Furio, but yeah, it's just, you got to go to this Paradise Island, and it's what a hellhole. Because, well, I do love his reasoning of like, I know you've been, feeling down with the horse and everything.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like, he's clearly talking about himself. Deep down, I know that's the reason you got your haircut. And that's when she looks at him like, wow, you have no idea.
Yeah, that's true. He does like, on the surface, what he's doing is the right thing. But then when he opens his mouth, he is completely ruining it. Yeah, that's probably why you cut your hair. Then we cut to, Furio seething in the car as Tony's complaining about Carmella, calling her a moody bitch. And, he just has to suffer in silence. He is being the strong silent type, as we've gone over.
Yeah, although it's clearly building to something, as we'll see here. Like, that's the purpose of this.
Or is it?
It makes sense, building tension between Carmilla and Tony, and then, it's going to all explode.
Or will it? Because this is a David Chase show. This is the Sopranos. So is it building to something? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we will, won't we? Well, we got another build-up here at the golf course where we have this kid. It's Carmine's kid, right? That's who this character is.
Yeah, little Carmine's now up in New York, I guess, or I don't know if they're in Jersey golfing. I assume they're in New York. Basically because of Tony, because Tony went down to Miami, asked him to kind of help out. But as we see now, like, roles quickly reverse because, Carmine makes a comment about how, how proud he would be to have Tony as his son.
That's all it took.
Yeah. Just one thing. Now little Carmine hates him, but now it's like, not only is little Carmine worried about being replaced, now Johnny Sack is worried about being replaced by little Carmine, since he's now in the scene.
Yeah, but the most important thing is it's a total debacle. That's the most important thing about the scene, where, you know, we have some people saying shit wrong, but like he brings it to a whole new level, making you think he should not be the new Carmine or the new Johnny Sack. Shouldn't be anything. And yeah, Carmine should be proud to call Tony his son, but he's not. Yeah, it is funny. It is funny looking back. Just a couple episodes, like they were like down in Florida, people were gonna kill each other. Like Johnny Sack was he was gonna get killed, and Carmine was given the go ahead. I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but wow, what a reversal.
Yeah, and also it's what's kind of nice about these short scenes with little Carmine is it's they quickly show you that he's pretty dumb and he doesn't belong, and it kind of made sense that he was just kind of pushed off into Miami just doing whatever the fuck he did there. And it's like not a great thing that Tony has him involved now. But yeah, I mean, the Sopranos are a glorified crew. I mean, who are we kidding here? Or the New Jersey family.
Yeah, they're not a family, which is a fun line. So Carmine shows up at Furio's place, and like this is just a few minutes into the episode, so already I'm like, oh, this is a really Furio heavy episode. Like something's bound to happen here. Yeah, Carmela is taking a look at this place where Furio's mother doesn't want mirrors because, you know, it's nose in the air when people look at themselves. But tile floors are okay. So we got to get that sorted. I will give him credit. It looks like someone could live in this place, which I did not expect seeing the garage earlier.
Yeah. Things are starting to come together. And then let me see. I mean, I don't know on this. Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, to go to like Tile Center or some like some real generic just tile store, and it's like I'd be so happy to go there with you. And they're like, oh, it's a date, and they're having these knowing looks, and yeah, sparks are really flying here.
Yeah, he's saying, I never thank you for helping me. You're a very special woman, and all those wonderful things that, you know, he just has such a way with words. But yeah, they make a date. And
what's great here, if we go back, you know, a couple months ago when we're watching season 2, and then they have the Italy episode, and we've brought it up a few times that Tony's like, we're going to start bringing in more Italian guys, and they only bring in Furio. And it's like, did you expect this is where we were headed?
No, I don't think anyone did, including the writers, that this was the thing. But this is where we headed, I guess. I do wonder where the Italians went, the other ones. What happened with the car deal and that whole other family in general? Did anything happen? I don't know. But yeah, it's David Chase, so there you go. We have a car crash, very dramatic, very violent here, with Paulie's mother.
Yeah, Paulie's ma and Cookie. And what was the other lady's name? I think Min.
We won't have to know it for long.
Yeah. Min Matrone. And like, I like that it does kind of seem like it could almost be Paulie's mother's fault, but it's also not, because, you know, why is this old lady driving around? I know she wants to keep her independence, but they're trying to like rush to a handicapped spot and they crash. And that sets up some drama for later.
Yeah, they're at bingo, so like the handicap spots might be taken already. But yeah, they just crash into some other car, which then ends up with Paulie showing up at the hospital, and they were going to go to the producers. This is an interesting way to start this one for Paulie. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, and then meanwhile, Tony and Silvio are at the casino. We haven't been in the casino in a while, and Furio's giving Tony the eyes, because like everyone else is like, we're calling it night, we're going home. Tony's ready to keep the party going. Of course, he's making out with some chick, you know, doing what he does. But now it like means more to Furio, obviously, as he has this connection with Carmilla, much like we saw when he's talking shit in the car.
Yes, and is his name Brian, the guy? The financial guy, he's there. He's having a whale of a time, you know, best new life. Nothing's ever going to go wrong for Brian, I bet. So this casino, I've not seen it in a while, like you mentioned. I did think, like, is this that, you know, Native American guy's casino? Is this where we are? It's just this other casino, though, right?
Yeah, I think it's just in, like, just a city building. It's where he ran into Jackie Jr. that time. And then he he smacked him up at the Bing, but I think he also ran into him at the casino one of the times and gave him like the initial warning. So it's just kind of a
Right.
spot they pop in every now and then.
Yes, like you said, Furio is just staring daggers, and where does it go from there? I think, yeah, I mean, we don't check in on that again until they are asking if the chopper is available, and apparently it's a big deal about this chopper, and they've like it. There have been issues before with the choppers, and they had to tell the girls, "Don't tell the guys about the chopper. Like, don't mention a chopper." But they mention it, and yeah.
Yeah, I think the reasoning behind it is that it's like an expensive thing.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
it's obviously something they roll out because even he's like, yeah, 15 grand between them. And that's like a lot of money, but it's probably not typically chopper money. Like they probably just set him up with a limo. And I guess that's why I assume maybe it is in New York or something because where are they taking a chopper to? And yeah, and then that sets up the great. Well, I mean, I guess we're kind of going around here. Yeah, with I remember this this was one of the shots in the like next week on the Sopranos, and you got Furio eyeing Tony with the chopper blade behind him, and it's like, oh, here we go. What's gonna happen? And I mean, obviously, Tony Soprano's not gonna get thrown into a chopper blade, but I guess it's some nice tension either way.
Yeah, it is, and it's some good acting on Furio's part of like both the look in his eye beforehand, the looking around. He's the only one who's sober and really in it, except he's not in it because he's clearly like thinking something that's totally out of his mind, and he does grab hold of him, and that's when you see in his eye the look there after he grabs him. I was like, oh shit, it's like he's coming out of a trance, and then he's like, you're standing too close.
Yeah.
And if he moved him out of the way, I would kind of believe that, but he just kind of leaves him there, kind of walks off. But he should have, if you wanted it to be believable. I mean, Tony's drunk; he doesn't know either way. But he should have moved him away from the chopper, right? But yeah, it's still a good scene, even though no one gets chopped up.
Yes, yeah, and I guess looking at least my notes, the intercutting is weird because we do like in the midst of this, we do have Carmela go to visit Meadows' apartment, and that's where we kind of learn that she now has an apartment in her sophomore year. They have a quick couple little sidelines of dialogue, just being like, "Oh, I thought it was weird if she's a sophomore, but those seniors moving out." And she
doesn't make sense.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry to cut you off. I was just gonna say, it does kind of make sense because when they show the casino establishing shot, it is day, so like they've clearly been at this casino all day. So we have the first scene in the casino. Then, like you mentioned, we get to see Meadows' apartment, and it's really like, oh, Meadows evolving like a Pokemon, just getting to the next stage here. She got her own place with all these roommates, and they're all very civilized, and she's being very reasonable and nice to her parents, which is interesting.
And she's got a new boyfriend, but she's a little concerned because he hasn't said "I love you" yet. And then we get back to the casino, everything we talked about. Then it kind of cuts to Tony, classic hungover Tony, walking down the stairs in his robe, all disheveled. Furio has not arrived yet. He's 40 minutes late as well. And then Carmela even has a little concern of like, oh, you two are up to stuff last night, or what do you want? He's a single guy. Who knows?
Yeah. Exactly, and I think she tries to call him as well, but just gets the answering machine. And then Meadow calls, and she's already like, fucking Meadow. Like, this is at the start of this whole arc, but she's like exhausted to talk to her. And she invites them to come to dinner because I think she's now in a crowd where you pretend to be a grown-up and you host dinner parties. So she's like, oh, because she says, like, we only get good wine when parents come. Like, this is a thing we do. Like, I don't think she would have taken that initiative on her own, but she's getting into a different crowd. This is what you do. So now I'm going to do it. Please come visit.
But yeah, and I mean, as the episode goes on, like the little things, like the fact that Meadow does have her own apartment, given she's with roommates, or that she is handling the dinner on her own, and she does have this budding romance. These things are all magnified to Carmela with her, issues with Furio. She does drive by Furio's house. She doesn't go in though. And then we kind of cut back to Tony's meeting Johnny Sack, and again, they still want 40%, but the compromise is, well, no, just 40% from now. You don't even have to back pay all the stuff you made previously, just from now on 40%. And they kind of make some comments that they're at this potential new bar or restaurant or whatever of Carmine's, and that
Yeah.
becomes important.
Yeah, and it's interesting in Johnny Sack because has he always been against this whole like rising beef? Wasn't it like a couple episodes he was kind of wishy-washy on it or whatever? But like he's clearly starting to think that this is unreasonable. He doesn't like that he has to be the mouth that says like doesn't give a counter offer. That was a big thing that they didn't even counter offer when they declined the 40%. So he doesn't like this, and he knows how it's going to play out, much like that earlier scene when they're like, pretty much what we expected. He knows this is going to go down bad, but he has to do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, because Johnny Sack, it's like he's getting back into the role of the Johnny Sack of old. That was more of a confidant to Tony. Whereas this season, I mean, I guess with Ralphie out of the picture, that helps things. But we saw quite a different Johnny Sack. They like to kind of change things around a bit. And like you said, with this episode, things do like a complete reversal.
Yes. And speaking of reversals, we get Carmilla finding out that, hey, thanks, you got Furio, that guy. He gave me the listing and we sold it immediately, or at least emptied it. We're going to sell the house. So she does another drive-by, but gets out of the car this time to see it's totally empty. Oh, my God.
Yep, and then Tony mentions what? Furio went back to Italy, left a voicemail at the Bing at 4:30 a.m. He's like that stupid Zip, I think he calls him. I think this is because then it cuts to they're basically arriving at Meadows, and they even brought like a boxes of water, I guess food, taking care of the little Italian princess. We do meet Finn, Meadows' new beau, at the apartment, and I do like that Tony's being more like charming, like he's being nice, and I guess it's like the contrast between how Carmela is going to react here, because she's already immediately kind of like passive aggressive a little bit, and what we're used to, especially last season, Tony was always the one at odds with the whole Noah situation, but now Tony's the nice guy.
Yeah, I guess quitting therapy does wonders for your social skills. I was thinking earlier, like, there's no therapy scenes. And I was like, oh, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. I got to remind myself. He walked out. He did the final walkout for now. And yeah, so he meets up with these people. I was trying to figure out like the dynamic here with these kids. There's the boyfriend who's he wants to get into dental school, very respectable. His family has money and a place in Canada. And then there's this other kid living with the house that just laughs at everything Tony says. And there's this girl as well. I was trying to figure out the dynamic of what all these kids are thinking, because they all know who Tony Soprano is. Everyone knows who Tony Soprano is. It's interesting.
Yeah, it kind of has to be assumed at this point. They all have an idea. I do wonder what that means, like what is said when they're not around to Meadow, or how Meadow reacts. Although we saw a little bit at the end of season 3, even though she would disrespect Tony, it was still like to outsiders, my dad's in waste management. So, but then it's intercut with, we do see that they're trashing Johnny's restaurant / bar, whatever it is. They draw a dick on the painting with the canoe. Things are starting to heat up in the New York, New Jersey war.
It's a very Soprano thing to say. It is a gondola, I think. They're in Venice, so it's not really a canoe.
You're right.
That's something they would say in this show. Do a cock over the canoe.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, so we get to the dinner scene. And like we mentioned, they get really into this book that apparently everyone has read. It's required reading, I suppose. I mean, except AJ. He didn't actually read it seems. But yeah, they get really into it, and Carmilla is very adamant that it's ridiculous. They're putting this gay stuff in our films and literature. And then I think Meadow says like, yeah, but this scholar said this, and she's like, well, maybe he's gay. You ever think about that?
Yeah. That's the kind of final burn. That's the final. And like Tony's just kind of like, who cares? Like, what does it matter? AJ says something like, I didn't know they had fags back then, or something like that. So the classic AJ line. And yeah, it's I like that. It's just a nice uncomfortable just a nice uncomfortable moment, because it's also, I mean, we know what Carmela's going through, but it also stacks with, we've seen when Meadows been kind of like pretentious and spoken down to Carmela in the past as well. So it's like everything's kind of coming to a head, and she's just worked up and needs to get this anger and frustration out somewhere. So it's about this book that she doesn't really know anything about and is probably wrong about.
She's really lashing out at everyone, because we've already seen her with Tony, like she doesn't want to go on the holiday or whatever. But obviously that was before Fury even left, so it's a million times worse now. And like I almost feel sad as well for AJ, because Meadows like, hey, you're passing everything, and he says with like a smile on his face, I got a C on a paper I did on Billy Budd. That's how the whole thing comes up, and he's like smiling, and Carmela's like, a C? And Tony has to point out, like, yeah, that's a lot better than he usually does. What's wrong with you? And she's not happy with that. She's really not happy with anything at this point.
Yep. Then we see Carmine finds his trashed restaurant, and I forget. I think it's here where he. Oh no, it's later on. He says, "Call the union." Basically, we're starting to see that he has to respond in some way, because it's the old mafia thing where it's like, obviously this was Tony and his crew, but we don't know that. Yeah. But we know that. That's how they talk too. Where it's like they know, but they don't know, but they know. And then, then we have kind of the scene that opens the show here, where we have Paulie and Silvio coming head to head, which I really liked. I like that, even though it's such a quick thing where they're kind of, just yelling at each other. And Silvio is being reasonable here, though. Certain people are wondering where your heart is. But Paulie, hey, every friendship has its peaks and valleys. Right now, me and Tony are in a valley, and then Paulie takes it to the next level. We just, I don't know where it just calls him a wormy cocksucker.
Yeah, it's fun, because even though Silvio, much like Tony, has clammed up a bit around Paulie, he's actually giving him good advice here. He's like, oh, well, maybe it's because of this, maybe it's that, and so on. But Paulie doesn't want to hear any of it. And even though he does take Silvio's advice later, basically, it's still a scene that I wonder if it will have consequences or not. Like, between Silvio and Paulie, are things like irrevocably broken after this, or is this just Paulie being Paulie? Like, are you used to this if you're Paulie's friend? I'm not so sure. But then if he comes in with a fat, envelope and everything, and buys Silvio a drink, are they going to be okay or not? I'm not completely sure.
Yeah, and it's a nice showing of, especially because where we go later with Paulie, it's a nice showing of this kind of newfound confidence he has, because he feels like he has, his in with New York. So, I mean, I guess that's even what his line is, where he's like, who knows what the future holds, my friend, because he really believes he's like going to be the boss. And I mean, again, in classic Chase fashion, I guess we can kind of, we're jumping around a bit, but it doesn't go where you think it's going to go. It doesn't become this like Paulie, goes to war and then joins New York. And then it's like, he was one of my guys. He runs into Carmine at like a random wedding, and he doesn't know who the fuck he is. And now it's like, oh shit, what have I done? What do I got to do? What's going on?
Yeah. I may need to rewatch it, but I had the impression that he was bullshitting when he was like, oh, it's my sister's whatever, my friends. Like, I thought he was there to see Carmine. I thought that was the thing, but I don't know.
I mean, I think that's a read. I like, because I wouldn't put that above Paulie, and it would make sense, because if he's already kind of speaking a little bit out of turn, like, even though it's not he's not declaring war on Silvio, it does feel like it's kind of a big deal, that scene. So maybe he's thinking, all right, let's start talking to Carmine as well. So I wouldn't put it above Paulie to kind of figure out where he's at and kind of just worm his way in there.
Yeah, because he doesn't look, I think, surprised when he sees him or anything. But then it could just be that he went to this wedding that he normally wouldn't have cared to go to, because he knows Carmine will be there. So rather than, like, it's not I don't think either of us would be wrong or right. It's probably not a coincidence, but he clearly wants, but not completely a lie either. Well, he's probably, I mean, they probably are related or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah. But then, backing up a bit, then Carmine does basically, after the Paulie Silvio scene, he mentions call the union. That's kind of going to be their retaliation. Then we have Rosalie April and Carmilla. Again, getting in a little gossips, speaking on the Furio situation. We had a date for color tile. And then I think what Rosalie says, you don't think Tony said something. And then what Carmilla just kind of like runs out. Much like, I mean, she is regressing, and it is kind of very like teenage crush type stuff, because she even like she doesn't necessarily storm out. I wouldn't put it on the counter, but she she runs out in a dramatic teenage fashion.
Yeah, and I think she's pointed that out as well about this whole situation, how it's affecting her, making her act a bit like that, act a bit like a teenager. She called it out herself, so at least she's self-aware. Doesn't make it any easier for her. From one awkward dinner to another, we have Polly with the old ladies, I suppose, after they saw the producers. Is that a thing that, like, old people love the producers? Because, like, I kind of like the producers. I don't know.
The only thing I know about the producers is that season of Curb Your Enthusiasm when he was in the producers. And I was like, oh, this is about producers.
Dude, it's in Swedish, that music. I mean, it's Mel Brooks, and it's Springtime for Hitler in Swedish. So it's about. Do you not know the plot of the producers?
Well, from Curb Your Enthusiasm, because they're creating a show to fail or whatever.
Yeah. So they make it the worst show possible. So they make it a musical about Hitler, and Springtime for Hitler. It's written by a Nazi, and they're making it. But everyone thinks it's well, spoilers for the producers, but everyone thinks it's a great, funny parody. But it's actually like written by a Nazi, and it's just a ridiculous. Yeah, they try to make the show fail in every way possible, and they fail to do that and accidentally make it a hit, but that means they're fucked, so they have to resolve that somehow. But it just has the musical number, Springtime for Hitler, and I'm guessing they're going to see the musical version rather than, like, the original. Well, it wouldn't be a stage play. They're definitely seeing the musical.
Yeah, they're seeing it, the Broadway, right? And, well, I mean, and in a meta fashion on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Mel Brooks casts Larry David in as one of the leads because he wants the producers to fail because he's sick of always having to do the producers. So I don't know if you've seen that season, but it's really great.
Right, that is good. Okay, anyway, they did. I don't know if they were very impressed with the producers. It's not really important. It's more about the roles, like who grabbed the roles, and
they're just loading up. Finally, the doggy bags are here, and they're grabbing sugars and dinner rolls, and at first, I thought it was going to be an issue that Paulie kind of only, like, I wasn't sure if they were going to expect him to pay the bill or something, but he's like, this is from on me. But he also does pay for parking and gas, so he's actually being a pretty good host here. But yeah, while he was going over the bill, they fucking stole her rolls.
Yeah, which, I guess is... But were they for the table, or like wasn't she right, or did they have separate ones? Did they grab for both of the bread things for both sides of the table? Also, there are still rolls like on the table. I think no, those got grabbed. Anyway, the important thing here is, Jim, I also do this. Am I a scumbag or just an old woman? Like, because you gotta have the rolls. If they're on the table, they're yours.
Fine, but if you're grabbing like cream and sugar and stuff, that's a bit much. You're going a little overboard now.
I would never do that. Okay, so but yeah, Paulie, the rolls are very important to all of these people, and he tells the waiter to go like wrap them or something, which is weird.
Instead of just putting him, they already have doggy bags, but we do hear some important information here. I think Cookie mentions that Min keeps money in her mattress, or she doesn't put money in the bank or something like that. So nice little like throwaway line that becomes important.
Yes. So this is the next scene is where the whole Esplanade worksite gets shut down. I did wonder what's the deal with the rats, because like if you're coming from the union shutting it down, do you need to make it a big carnival thing? What's the deal with the rat, Jim?
I was thinking about that too. Actually, let me look that up. What was the inflatable rat?
Because I was like, okay, is it like, oh, someone's a rat? Is that because it seems like something that would be done in this show? But I mean, they're the official guys; they're acting in an official capacity. So what's up?
Inflatable rats are union rats. They're giant inflatables in the shape of cartoon rats, commonly used in the U.S. by protesting or striking trade unions. They serve as a sign of opposition against employers or non-union contractors. They're intended to call public attention to companies employing non-union labor.
Oh, okay.
Roots back from the 1990s. I thought they're going to be like, it's going to be more longer than that. Although I guess it's pretty far now. But in Sopranos time, it's like, oh, this goes back a few years ago. Bring out the rats.
Yeah, well, it does add up then. It makes sense because that's exactly what they're doing. So got to get that rat in there. And I mean, this transition makes sense though. Speaking of rats, they do go and talk to this juror and just point out that, hey, it's so great that such a nice family man like you is doing the right thing, and so on. So I think they get the message across.
It's kind of weird because with these things, it's a common, mafia movie trope where, someone shows up and intimidates you. And I'm sure it's something that's been done in real life, but I just have to wonder, like, it feels like at least 50% of people would then just go to the authorities, right? I imagine it definitely works, but then I don't know. I feel like most people would be like, all right, I got to go to the police. Some guy came in and threatened me. And maybe that's bad. Maybe that history's proven that that's not a good way to go. But I feel like that's probably what I do. Maybe I'm just a little rat, a little rat piece of shit.
Bring out the inflatable rat for Jim. Yeah, it's weird because the speech, the closing statement there at the very start of the episode, it's we don't see any more of the courtroom this episode, but I think that speech is partially in there because it kind of helps Junior, that they're talking about, like, this guy's ruthless. He'd kill you as soon as look at you, send your goons after your family. And then, like, the goons show up and they are after his family. So, like, they've done a good enough job convincing this guy that I think this is going to work just because of that speech where they're actually saying, like, no, this is serious shit.
Yeah.
He's not just some guy. If you convict him, ooh, you're going to die. So, counterproductive there of the lawyer.
Yeah, that's a good point. Then we have Carmilla sobbing in the bathroom. Meadow calls, and rightfully she's like, did I do something wrong? Did I piss you off? And then we hear about the tradition that we heard about in the pilot, when kind of the roles were reversed. Meadow was sobbing in her bed, and Carmilla came in with her gloves on and her little purse, and hey, Miss Meadow, we're gonna go have tea at the Plaza Hotel under Eloise's picture. Now the tables have turned, and Meadow wants to do it. I don't know what Eloise is until my girlfriend was telling me about Eloise when we were in New York, because we went to the Plaza Hotel, but we couldn't even get into the hotel because there's a big line out the door. I guess you need reservations or whatever. So we went into there's like a back entrance gift shop, and there's all this Eloise stuff, and I'm like, who's Eloise? And apparently it's children's books or something. And I still don't really know.
I just gleaned that from Wikipedia as well, that yes, it's a portrait. And yeah, it's some books, children's books from the 50s. Much like Billy Budd at the Wiki.
I guess it's a little girl thing. Maybe that's why I didn't have the Eloise books when I was growing up. I do like the factoid that Kay Thompson that wrote them, it may have been based off Liza Minnelli, who we all know from Arrested Development, of course, as Lucille too. So there you go.
And okay, I guess it makes sense just reading the very first bit on Wikipedia. Eloise is a girl who lives in the room on the tippy top floor of the Plaza Hotel in New York City with her nanny, her pug dog Weenie, and her turtle Skipper D. So, okay, I guess it makes sense then that the Plaza Hotel would be central. It's where the book takes place. And makes sense. But yeah, so this time they actually go. Did they go in the pilot? I don't think so.
No, Meadow turned it down. She even was mean about it. She said something like, I've only been doing it because you like it, like recently. Like, only really twists it. But now we get Carmilla who's going to get revenge.
Yeah. Another great reversal here in this one. So, what do we have? We do have a little scene in between where they decide what to do. Tony decides what to do about the whole situation. And, what does he decide to do? I don't remember.
There's no retaliation. Like right now, because they were like ready to go, they're going to go torch some other place or whatever. But Tony says, no retaliation, no back and forth. Mm-hmm. Silvio says it's going to cost us. And then Tony says, well, it's going to cost him too. So it's kind of like, for the U.S. here, when we just had our recent government shutdown, it's kind of like we're in a standoff. Who's gonna break?
Yeah, but who's Tony Soprano and who's Carmine in this standoff? That's the real question. Then we do get to the Plaza Hotel. I think we get to see the picture, It's not the finest looking painting I ever saw, but I guess it's iconic. So can't complain. Carmela did bring the gloves, so you got to give her like some points for that. She puts them on and is very sad and upset about everything.
Well, and to be fair to Carmela, like I think this is a thing that like people that live in LA or people that live in New York do, because initially when she's like, I'll take the George Washington Bridge, and then she's like, you're gonna take the bridge to go to Midtown? It's like, I know how to get in the city. And then she's like, where'd you park? It's like, a lot on 57th. Is that okay? And that's like the running gag with LA or New York people. They're always like, oh no, you don't want to take 7th. You got and you know what? To be fair to Carmela, that's annoying.
Yes, I think that's also. I mean, I know it's a thing in LA and New York. Definitely a thing in the UK in general as well, because there's a lot of traffic and a lot of roads, and it's like every old man has an opinion in a pub. Like, oh, you can't go there. No, oh, are you insane? Maybe if you left 2 weeks ago, you'd get there in time, but maybe if you take this route on a Tuesday afternoon before 7, but after 4, and all these things. But yeah, the situation doesn't go great. It's not a great situation. It's mostly Carmela, I'd say, still, even with the traffic directions, bringing this mood down.
And Meadow does even say, like, what are you, jealous? Like, which is, pretty on the nose. But it's there. She is jealous. And I like that they just kind of leave it at this moment of like, they're in this nice place, and it's usually a place where, I'm sure they've had a lot of good times there, but it's not like Meadow gets up and leaves. They're just kind of have to sit there in this silent, like awkward, like, okay, well now it's bad here in this nice place.
Yeah. And it's like, Carmela's obviously like, every little thing is a problem, where she brings up like, oh, I'll come by at this time and do some laundry. She doesn't even say, like most college kids, I'll come by at this time and you do my laundry. She's actually gonna probably do it herself. Well, who knows? But yeah, she's like implying that the boyfriend would come and stay, even though Meadow clearly didn't say that, because her mind is in a particular place, and she's like, oh, the way you two hang off each other and so on. So yeah, bringing us up to the whole jealousy line. And like you said, it's so close at the end there that it almost feels like Carmela's going to start crying again and they're going to hug it out. That's not how it ends, though. It just hangs there in this awkward, unpleasant situation where Meadow is now threatening to transfer to another school.
Yeah, I mean, and she does even throw a few good ones at Carmela, too. She mentions, like, well, maybe I'll go to, I forget what school, and then just drop out like you did. Oh yeah, Northwestern.
Oh no, yeah, no, sorry, yeah, I guess that's another one. Oh yeah, that's rough. That's a rough one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we already mentioned the scene with Carmine and Polly. It's devastating to see the look on his face, but also so satisfying, right?
Oh yeah.
Your father was run over by that trolley, right?
That's right. Oh yeah, it is really satisfying because it's like, Paulie, man, what are you doing? You've been fucking up. Maybe now you'll do the right thing. And he does.
Well, yes. He goes into the bathroom and sort of stares at himself. And, like, I assume this is the moment when he's like, right, got to rob that old lady. It's the only way out of this.
I mean, he's definitely, obviously, like what Silvio said, you're only as good as your last envelope. That's what's going through his head. And Paulie comes up with the most Paulie solution to that, that question in his head.
Exactly. So Carmela gets the mail and sees a postcard from Italy, and she's like, and I was with her. I was with her in this moment, even though it's stupid. I was like, yeah, clearly he sent a postcard, and then it's just like some hair salon or something, and it's like, oh.
It's so heartbreakingly funny, though. It's such like a funny thing, but like, I'm with you too, because I was even like, oh yeah, he would know that she checks the mail. Like he would know that Tony wouldn't check the mail. At least there's one little parting, like, we'll live on in our fantasies forever or something. Nope, yeah, just some ad. And then it's kind of like, I don't know if I'm just picking this up in my head, but Tony seems grosser here when he's eating for some reason.
Tony's always gross when he's eating. But they maybe amp it up a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how purposeful it is. It must be, but yeah, he's like, I don't know. He's got a sandwich and he's like dipping olives or something or other, and he's just kind of like stuffing his face. And then they kind of go over. There's a horrible lunch with Meadow, and I mean, I don't know what else they cover there. I think it's just kind of that.
Yeah, I mean, she says stuff like, "Oh, at this point, don't even care if she transfers away and whatever," and like she's acting pretty bad about it. And he says, you know, like I don't have enough to deal with, or no, he says like I don't have enough on my plate, which he does have a lot on his plate, literally. And he complains that one of his key guys disappeared to Naples, for Christ's sake. And I mean, you're right. I did actually think in this scene about the eating as well. My thought was more like thinking again for the millionth time how much food and eating there is in this show. It's so central to it. And I was thinking, okay, but yeah, other shows have eating and drinking as well. But then I thought, no, they generally have like, they have pouring. You pour something into a cup,
Yeah.
and maybe you like raise it while you're talking, and then someone says something and you put it down. Like, but The Sopranos has actual eating and drinking as such a central part. It's something that is clearly tied to the theme, but it's also surprising that other shows don't do more of this. It almost feels like it just doesn't happen because it's like, well, we got to do 8 takes, so we don't want to get him too full or whatever. But it can add such a level of, I don't know, it's something so concrete and realistic. And in writing, when you're describing stuff, taste is a huge sense. Like you shouldn't be ignoring it just because it's a film medium. You can evoke those feelings here as well, and I think they do that well, even when it's like gross, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and even specifically just Tony and Carmilla in this specific setting has been a recurring thing many times. And usually in the past, it's been this compromise moment where she prepares him something and then they sit in silence as he eats. And it's kind of like, okay, you know, life goes on. But more and more, it's been used as a weird like disconnect, whether it be the fact that he has to make his own thing or can't find leftovers or whatever it is, and she's not there. And now it is more specific, kind of like they're coming more at odds. So yeah, you're right. Like it's such a general thing on the show, but they use it in like more specific and interesting ways a lot of time too.
Yeah. So next scene we have Meadow. She's now at home, popping into AJ, who is reading another book. And they didn't even do the goof where he's like on page 1. He's like in the middle. And given he could have skipped, but he's actually doing it. And Meadow sort of asks a couple of questions and is like, it's clear why she's the straight A student and he's excited about a C, because she puts it all together immediately, because he's like, yeah, I don't know. She brought me over to this guy. I think she's upset about his dad dying, and like he's got it all messed up. He doesn't even know. Like, yeah, I think he went there or something, and for the funeral, and he's back, and I don't know. Oh, it was such a drag going over there. She puts it all together immediately.
Yes, and going through this Death in Venice, and again, I guess that's another gondola connection. The work presents a great writer suffering writer's block who visits Venice and is liberated, uplifted, and then increasingly obsessed by the sight of a stunningly beautiful youth. Though he never speaks to the boy, much less touches him, the writer finds himself drawn deep into ruinous inward passion. Meanwhile, Venice, and finally the writer himself, succumb to cholera plague. But I guess I mean it's another gay book, but it is, I mean, I guess it's speaking to Carmilla's like the inward, like they never, you know, they never consummated their crush. They never got a chance to even go on their half of a date at the tile store, and I guess that's how the obsession and, you know, this inward passion can consume you. So there you go.
Well, speaking of obsession, I have this to say. AJ's teacher, maybe he's gay. You ever think about that? He's just signing all these gay books.
That's a great point. I mean, I guess the theory washes.
Okay, so then we have a fantastic scene where Paulie goes and robs this old lady. And it's such a comical scene. And like, which then turns so dark, which is such a Paulie thing, where like you think he's gonna crawl under the bed, or you think he has some skills, but like he's like, oh, the car's gone, she's clearly not home. Breaks in and is rummaging around, and she knows what's up, and the whole scene is just great.
Well, and also like he's freaking out. It's not like she's saying, "I'm gonna call the police" or something like that. She's like, "I'm gonna call your mother," and I guess that maybe that's like worse to Paulie. And then maybe. He's trying to be like, you know, hey, we'll come, we'll have make some coffee, or, you know, we'll have dinner sometime. He's trying to really play it off, but she's not having it, and then it just ends with him smothering her with a pillow. And it really is kind of like, it's a pretty brutal scene.
Yeah. I mean, she says she's calling his mother, but is she really calling the police? I guess
True.
not, because she has like an alarm around her neck. So that's like
Like a life alert.
Yeah, he grabs it like, "Don't you set that thing off," and then chases her down the hall. And and then she starts saying like, "You were always a little bastard," and like really sets him off. It feels like at that point, I guess I knew he was gonna kill her, but it's also like, maybe he like, I don't know. Is there another way out of that situation? I guess they both know she had to die.
Yeah, I guess
Jesus.
because what else is he gonna do? Beat her up? If he beats her up, she's gonna rat on him. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
I mean, there is,
Yeah.
and to go into real life real quick, this is actually a recent news story back in November. The actress that plays Min Matrone, Sopranos actress, says cold apartment is killing her. An elderly retired actress who was whacked on The Sopranos says being killed off on TV is nothing compared to the slow death she's experiencing in her Upper East Side apartment. Wheelchair-bound Fran Anthony, 87, is one of about 15 residents on the 260 East 72nd Street in Manhattan. They've been without heat and hot water for the past 6 days. It's too cold for me to even order any food because I don't want to stand in the hall and answer the intercom. A lot of the neighbors have friends they can go to or a relative they can go to. I don't have anybody. Anthony played Min Matrone in the 4th season of HBO Mafia series. Her character socialized with the mother of soprano capo Polly Walnuts Gutierrez, who smothered her with a pillow when she caught the wise guy trying to rob her house. Temperatures dipped into the low 30s Saturday and Sunday. Anthony said that it's become a struggle for her to bathe or use the bathroom because she doesn't want to get out from underneath her blankets. I have to take everything off to go to the bathroom. It's so hard. Even my hands when you use the toilet. You want to wash your hands, but it's freezing cold. I've been using that chemical stuff, parentheses, hand sanitizer. Feels pretty awful. I don't know if there was an update on this, because I remember this was kind of going around in November, and I was like, oh, I can't send this to you because it says how she gets smothered by Polly. But now that we're at this point, we can at least call this out. I hope someone took care of her in this. I feel like it's been getting colder since November, so I imagine this apartment now has heat.
Well, let's keep imagining that. You know, when you started saying, like, there was a news story back in November, I'm like, great, the guy who played Paulie actually smothered someone. Because that's always the thing here, because it's like, yeah, it was actually like a real-time mobster, and like, it's always going to be something. And I was like, oh, it's just cold. Did she freeze to death? No, not yet. Okay, cool. So, yeah. She's dead on the show, though, and you know what that means.
Oh, that's right. Shit, I almost forgot. That's right. We do got to get the old counters out, because, I mean, of course, she counts. She's been in multiple episodes. So let's put a little... Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say she done got murdered. So it's fine to cut me off in those types of situations, Jim. Let's put it on the board.
Yeah, put a little stank on it. So now we're at... What's the count at, my dude?
37. 37 deaths and 13 walkouts. If there is no more therapy, which I don't believe, it is a great number to stop at, 13 walkouts. But yeah, 37 deaths, which is, you know, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot, but we're at 51 episodes. In a mob show, you would expect it you wouldn't really expect it to be more, honestly. I'm honestly surprised by 37 because it feels like there have been seasons where no one dies, but then you get an episode where 10 people dies. So it all adds up.
Plus a horse.
Of course, we have to count the horse. So Paulie comes in and he's all buddy-buddy with Tony now. He's got that fat envelope. Tony's like, what'd you do, rob a bank? And he's saying, things are back on track. I'm going to do my part. He realizes now he has no other avenues. This is where he's at. He's got to show his loyalty, get back in good graces. And he put a smile on his face, even though he just murdered an old lady. Maybe that helped. I don't know. Tony still shoos him out, though, because he gets a phone call from Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny Sack calls in, but now I like that Paulie's now like, what's that prick want? Like, because now, you know, Johnny Sack's not quite in his good graces anymore. And then Paulie is even got his head to the door trying to listen in and see what they're talking about.
Yeah. I don't think he hears anything useful, though, at the door. Because he's just like, oh, yeah, let's meet. And he almost reacts like, oh, shit, they're going to meet. But I don't even know. It's interesting. When he said, like, what's that prick want? I at first was like, yeah, he's just saying he doesn't like him because Tony doesn't like him. But then I was like, oh no, of course he doesn't like him now.
Yeah.
Because he's a fucking liar. So Tony comes down the steps and talks to Meadow for a little bit, again in his robe like he does, and they talk about Carmilla because they both noticed something is off. And Meadow, I mean, she was never gonna tell him about Furio, but like she's trying to figure out what to say, and kind of just concludes, yeah, you're right, Dad. It's probably just menopause.
Yeah, man, Tony. It is almost like he's so clueless in a way. Like it's kind of like a shitty thing someone says when they're like, "Oh, I asked her for her number. She must be gay. She wouldn't give me her number. She's a lesbian." Like, she's going through menopause, and I mean, I guess she's getting older. That is something to think about. But like, come on, dude. Like, open your eyes. I feel like Meadow is like taking pity on him in a weird way. But she also, I mean, she must understand where her mother's coming from. But then also this bombshell that Meadow never knew about therapy.
I know, it's so great because like AJ found out and let it slip, and then like his mother knew and everyone knew, and he had to bring the crew in and tell everyone, but it was still a thing they didn't actually talk about. And then she went to college, so it's such a great thing where it's like, oh, we talked about it in counseling. Like, you went to counseling? Yeah, it was part of my therapy. You went to therapy? Oh, it's great. And her like surprised and impressed look is so like rewarding because it's like, oh, you went to therapy all this time while you were complaining to me a lot about Noah and all this stuff. You had therapy through all that and you were still like that? Like, imagine what he would have been like without it, Meadow.
Yeah, it's such a fun. I mean, I assume they're kind of like in the writer's room and they realize, wow, you know what? We've never had like a connection between Meadow's character, Meadow and therapy. So, it's a fun little detail to throw out here.
Even though she actually like was recommended a therapist through Tony's therapist, it's almost because he assumes she knew. So it's weird. I mean, he could have gone in an off-screen scene like, hey, even I've gone to therapy. Come on, you should do it, and blah, blah, blah. But I guess he never did, which also makes sense for him. But it is interesting to see the difference here of him being so casual about it. And I think part of it is that it's in the past tense for him, so that he can go, yeah, I went to therapy, got this sorted out, and now I'm great.
Yeah, very true. Then from there, Tony does meet up with Johnny, and it's the old, he's saying it, but he's not saying it. If something were to happen to Carmine,
God forbid.
Yeah. And it's like, he's a healthy man. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, he is healthy. That's the problem.
It's exactly the scene with Paulie and Johnny, just like the other episode, like when they're walking down and talking about, oh, if God forbid something happened, who would be boss? But this time it's for real, like, because the earlier one was never going to happen. But this time it feels like, well, when Tony says he's going to kill someone, he's going to kill someone. And in most of these scenes, when it ends, they don't even often they choose not to have a reaction shot.
Yeah.
In this case, it's like they don't just linger on Tony. He actually goes like, holy shit.
Yeah.
To himself in the car, which they don't usually do.
Yeah, that's a fun moment because he doesn't can't believe what's happening here. I mean, I just have to wonder though, because they're always talking about like the other families, like what that would mean. But I guess if Johnny Sack is kind of throwing his support behind it, that's kind of the understood, like he can handle that if there's blowback or something. I don't know. As far as the interpolitics with what family does what, and if you take out a boss and what that entails.
Yes, I feel that it's let's see, what do they say there? He gives the go ahead. Like, even Tony could probably kill him before, much like Carmine could have Tony killed previously, I think, in a way. But yeah, having the go ahead from this guy who's likely to maybe take over, but then again, we don't really know that. He's just the only other guy we've seen in New York Mafia life who's not a complete idiot. But presumably he'd be, taking over a little bit, and he's giving you the go ahead. So it's probably fine. But it's still a holy shit moment. But that's, I suppose, why he brings up the health thing. It's got to be like, they can't shoot him in the street, but maybe if he, gets poisoned or something, Breaking Bad style, I don't know. Something could happen.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you need someone to smother him with a pillow, maybe you could get
just the guy. Yeah.
And then we end here with Carmilla in bed, and then Tony comes home, and he's taking off his clothes, get ready to go to bed, and they're talking about Meadow, and it's such a great capper to end on because Tony brings up she's this strong, independent woman that you created. She can do whatever she wants. Isn't that what you wanted? And Edie Falco been killing it this season. And just has that, that stare into the camera, basically, and just says yes, because that's what she wants.
Yes. Exactly. And then we play the music and we go to credits and cut to black. It's a good episode. It is interesting that this is episode 12 out of 13. I feel like we've obviously had like huge episodes past couple of ones. It's interesting not to have Christopher shooting up every episode anymore. So I'm kind of interested in seeing. I don't think we'll necessarily see him again until next season, but it's going to be interesting to see if he comes out like squeaky clean. What's going on there? Is there going to be another big thing? Obviously, you can't say, but I'm interested in seeing if there's going to be like Carmine being killed or something next time. It's going to be exciting. We're heading for the finale. Please send your finale thoughts to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com and let us know what you thought of the finale, because we're going to discuss it next time.
Yes, which is, I believe, the longest Sopranos episode in the whole run.
Ooh,
it's a 75-minute episode.
Well, that makes me think something is definitely happening, because they wouldn't have Tony eating for that long, even this show. So something's probably got to happen. You can, of course, also leave a review on iTunes of Cut to Black. We'd really appreciate it. We got one here from T. Durkin. The title of the review is great. It's 5 stars out of 5, no less. And it's short but sweet. Simply says, "Great podcast. Thanks, guys." Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, and if anyone else wants to let us know similar thoughts, just feel free to leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll read them out on the show. Anything else, Jim?
Well, there's just one more thing, and people would argue that it's probably the most important thing.
Okay, I will say, I don't know what you were going to say, but I just remembered something about this episode that I wanted to mention. I wanted to do it at the end, because I kind of got a slight spoiler from Wikipedia. So if you don't want any type of spoiler on anything, you can turn it off for now. But it's not a huge one, but it did. I kind of wish I didn't see it, but I wanted to mention it anyway because I did see it. So it's what could I say? Just turn it off now if you don't want any spoilers. It's a fairly mild one.
It's a mild
similar.
I think I know exactly what you're going to say, but yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly like the Russian in the woods type thing. So yeah, the spoiler alert's over, and the spoiler is that Furio's not in the show ever again, as far as I can see here. It just says it on the Wikipedia for the episode, says like, "This marks the last appearance of Furio." And I'm like, well, shit, I didn't know that. Because of the way, they put it together. It's like, yeah, of course, like, I would never have thought that. Like, I would have thought he would be back at some point, at least. Even if he wasn't back for the season or whatever, maybe he shows up, maybe they go to Italy, they have to get him in, we got to do a bank job in Italy or whatever, I don't know. Yeah, I guess he's not in it. And it ties into what you were saying before about, hey, it's a David Chase show. They were building to this for a long time, and the payoff is Furio left, and your fantasy is over, Carmilla.
Yes, yeah, he's on. It says here that, but he's only mentioned in future episodes. So yeah, we will not see Furio Gunta again. We don't get to see him like holed up in an Italian bodega or whatever the hell they'll call him. I don't know.
Riding his canoe down the the canals of Venice. I didn't think he would be like important or whatever, but I thought maybe we'd get a little bit more. I guess I'm like Carmilla, just waiting for a letter to come in, and I didn't necessarily want it spoiled that there would never be a postcard from Italy. But hey, there you go. I guess it makes sense. The storyline was all about Carmilla, and like you said, it makes you kind of think about what was the point of that whole Italy thing and the cars. They had some deal on importing cars, but the point was never that. The point was Tony talking to this powerful lady in Italy and how that reflected his life over here. Then he got Furio over here, but Furio's not that important. It's actually about how it affects Carmilla. So, yeah, I am interested in how it will affect or change Carmilla, or if she'll just have another hunk that she'll be all about at the start of next season.
Yeah, the new replacement hunk. But
of
yes,
course.
I mean, yeah, that is a good tidbit. I think that is a good placement for it at the end of the show, in case there are some people out there that are doing a week to week, which we do appreciate. But yes, that last thing though,
It's cut to black.
cut to black. Cut to black.